Good evening, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure for both Meera and myself to be here with all of you today. We would be talking about our work at WAIC, Where Are India's Children. Both of us are part of the founding team, and we've been working to use technology to bring abandoned and orphaned children across the country who are living in shelters into the adoption pools, getting them legally free to be adopted so that then they can be matched with waiting parents. It's been an interesting journey for us for the last 4 years. And today I think we'll share a glimpse of it with you as to what's the problem that we're trying to address and how we've been able to solve it in a small way in a few districts in India, and how there's a potential to take the solution to other states and districts as well. Let me start with just sharing my screen. Meera, you don't want to say anything? Bye.
Thanks. Yes, thanks, Amina. So we're very excited to be here and present our work. It is a niche area of work, not much heard of. So hopefully we can give some information which enlightens all the participants today. Thank you.
Right, great. So this is our case study presentation, bringing every orphan child in India into a family through adoption. And this is us. We thought it wouldn't be fair to start the session without talking about our children who we've got into our life through adoption. I've got 2 daughters, Ivanka and Varishka. They're 8 and 5 now through adoption. I'm also an adoption counselor trying to help parents through their adoption journey. Meera has 2 lovely children. There's Akash right there through adoption, and Megha is a bio child. Meera has also been an adoptive parent as well as an adoption counselor, which is what brought us together to try and solve this problem. But before I start more about us, let me tell you a little bit about a girl called Sakshi. Little girl called Sakshi was found at a railway station when she was about 5 years old. She was hungry, she was alone, and she was confused. They tried looking for her family, but her family could not be traced, and she was placed in a child care institution. She languished there for 4 years. A child care institution is the technical term for an orphanage or a shelter across the country. There are many such Sakshis. In fact, by various estimates, through various WCD reports, Women and Child Development Ministry reports, we can claim that there are over 4 lakh children who reside in India's shelters today. But barely 2,100 children end up in the legal adoption pool. The legal adoption pool essentially means these are the children who have no legal claim on them, and then they can be matched to waiting parents for adoption. Why is such a chasm? Why is such a great difference between 4 lakhs and 2,100 children? It's worth understanding that. Ideally, at least 3 out of every 10 children living in a CCI, the Child Care Institute, should be evaluated for adoption eligibility. We have found through our work that it is not possible to do it for all the kids, because many of the kids who live in the shelters today have living parents or living guardians. But at least 3 out of 10, that's about 30% of the children, should be given an option for adoption eligibility checks. But what's happening today is barely 1 out of every 200 children is getting evaluated. Whereas over 33,000 couples and singles are waiting for an average of 3 years to adopt in our country. Many of them get discouraged, resort to illegal adoptions, other methods. And it's really sad that while so many people wait, children are not reaching the adoption pool and not getting matched to these waiting parents. But why does this happen? It's worth delving into it a little bit before we talk about how we solve this. What we found out through our shelter study that we conducted around 4 years back in Pune district in Maharashtra was that, number one, there's a general apathy towards the entire concept of adoption. We do not find an adoption mindset. It is generally assumed that if a child is being orphaned, as long as we've given a roof over the head, we're providing for their education in a shelter, taking care of food and the basic necessities, that's good enough. It is not. Children have a right to family, but unfortunately, we don't recognize that, at least for the children who are there in the shelter shelters today. We also found a complete lack of pre-adoption process understanding. Even if a person wants to make sure that a child reaches an adoption pool, we realize that despite the law being very clear, the protocols being very clear, there was very poor understanding on the ground of how to move the child to an adoption pool. That was one of the big hindrances for moving the children. We also found that there is lack of digitalization in this entire process. There is still a lot of manual tracking of children living in CCIs. So if you and I were to approach, say, the Women and Child Development Commissioner of our district and ask him or her how many children in your CCIs today, how many of them abandoned, how many of them orphaned, how many of them have gone through adoption evaluations, it will take somebody quite some time to go and check physical files, count these children, and come back with data. We are yet to do a good job of digitizing the entire data in shelters of children. A lot of times we also found that the status of legal guardian for the children is unclear in the shelters. What is it essentially means is a lot of time if a child is orphaned, he or she has lost his biological parents, guardians would come, relatives, distant relatives would come and admit the children in the CCI, leave their names and some contact numbers, sometimes yes, sometimes no, and then after that won't turn back and look at the child. We found a lot of cases where we almost called it gradual abandonment because the status was so unclear. We were not even sure whether where would be possible for a child ever to go back to the guardian's family or their any bio family or relative. This is something that we found quite often. And because of this lack of clarity, it becomes very difficult for the authorities to take any decision on these children. It's worth understanding that every district in the country has what is called a child welfare committee. A child welfare committee is the governing body that takes decisions on the next steps for these children or the permanency of these children. Every district also has a district child protection officer who is responsible to ensure that the right steps are taken for these children and work upon the orders of the CWC to make sure that the children are, the orders that are being given by the CWC are being followed. We also found that there is no way for the children who are eligible for adoption to be highlighted on a regular basis to the people who are taking decisions on these children. So it becomes very difficult for the district authorities to go looking for these children since the data is not easily available. We also found that the childcare institutes or the orphanages really don't have any incentive to promote adoption. Right? One is they don't understand the process. Second is there's no clear incentives. Like if the child goes through adoption, so what? It's almost better for them if the child stays because then the child can still attract donations and grants, etc. But there's very little incentive to promote adoption of the child. These are some of the things that we found when we did a shelter study. But all of this can be solved. So what we did was we came up with a three-pronged approach. One thing is not going to solve this. So we wanted to attack the problem from various angles. The very first thing that we realized was use of technology is must. If we want to do anything on scale, if we want continuous tracking, if we want regular flags, notifications going to the authorities about the next steps for these children, only technology can help. What needs to be done is almost we need to digitize the records of these 4 lakh children, each of them living in the CCIs, and continuously flag eligible children who should be put through the adoption evaluation process. That is number one. What also needs to be done is to sensitize the people, the stakeholders who are there, the CWC members, the district child protection officers, the orphanage trustees, the social workers, make them understand about the need for this work and how pre-adoption work can be carried out. So our estimate is around 30,000 relevant stakeholders need to be sensitized and trained for this as well. And also, to a great extent, we need some policy changes. Though a lot has been done to clarify adoption guidelines, process, protocols in the Juvenile Justice Act, there's still more that can be done to bring more and more children, more and more eligible children to the adoption pool quickly so that they don't end up growing in a shelter where the future is actually quite bleak. I will hand over to Meera to talk a little bit about the technology solution and maybe show you the solution as well, and then probably speak to you again. Meera, should I stop sharing, or how would you like to do this?
Um,
We can continue with some of these slides, right?
yes, that would be
Great.
great. Yes. Hello again. So as Protima mentioned, we are looking at technology as one of the mainstays of our solution. So we created our own child life cycle management solution that essentially will collect data of every child in a childcare center, a childcare institution, for the districts where we visit, have approval for. So our caseworker sits with files in these shelters, opens our technology solution and enters every child's data into the technology solution. Thereby, after that, there is a rule engine in our technology solution which given certain indicators like a classification of a child, whether the child was abandoned, surrendered, or has been orphaned, or has a guardian, etc., takes these indicators and then recommends children for adoption evaluation. So the USP of the system is that essentially, let's say in a CCI, there are 100 children. What we are doing is giving a subset of data to the Child Welfare Committee and the District Child Protection Unit, which will have, instead of evaluating 100 children for adoption, which will have only those children who can go into the adoption pool based on our Juvenile Justice Act and the adoption regulations governed by CARA. So we are reducing the work of the stakeholders so that these children can be processed faster. If we wait for all the children to be evaluated and then the children process, it takes a lot of time. And this also gives them, the solution also tracks the children's movement when, let's say, the CWC or the Child Welfare Committee gives an order that this child should go through the adoption process. For example, an abandoned child, there has to be a paper publication given, like in major newspapers, and then there needs to be a TV telecast for this child saying this child is abandoned, is living here, so on and so forth, with a picture of the child, and a police report. That means the police has to inquire, and a report has to be given by the police saying that there is nobody for this child, there's no claimant, so please process the child further for adoption. So these are steps, for example, for an abandoned child. We also monitor that in the system so that it is tracked continuously the stage at which the child's movement is through the system, and also give notifications to these relevant stakeholders that, look, you haven't started the process yet, or it is stuck in this process, or it's pending in this process. So these are some of the advantages that comes out of the technology solution, so that they don't do it on paper. When they do it on paper, of course, it's all forgotten. Which child is in which stage is not recorded properly. So all those mishaps can happen with the child's tracking. So the solution also tracks the movement of the child till the child reaches the national database. After that, it is up to the national database. The matching happens in the national database, which is called the Carings portal. So our solution CLMS has been developed for us. The requirements in the design has been given by us, but has been developed by a technology partner named Social Bytes in Bangalore. So a few glimpses of those screenshots. Protima, maybe you can move ahead. So these are some of the glimpses of our solution. I can also give you a demo at the end of the presentation. So essentially, we enter relevant data of the children. We have dashboards, reports, which if a WCD official, I think Protima just mentioned about a district official, if we want a count of children in a district, the district official has to call all the childcare centers in that district. My favorite example is, let's say, even in Maharashtra, today, if we have to find out how many children are in Maharashtra living in childcare institutions, then the district commissioner, the state commissioner, WCD commissioner, will have to call about 35 districts. And those 35 districts, in turn, have to call all the child shelters to find out the data, right? With our solution, we are actually giving them how many abandoned children, orphaned children, children with parents are living, with families are living in these shelters. So they are district-wise, they're shelter-wise, so they can be filtered. And it is at a glance that an official can actually look at the numbers and make decisions quickly, right? Data technology is only available, it is powerful when we use it for certain purposes. And that is what we hope, that the decision makers can quickly decide what to do with these children. So this is a technology solution. Move forward a little bit. Yeah. And these are essentially glimpses, and I can show it to you a little bit later as well. And yeah, move forward. And we also progress, as I said, we also track the documentation that has been done, because the movement of the children only happens through documentation in this process. So we track what documentation has been uploaded in the system and if it is actually being done or not. So we track everything, and we send reports to the Women and Child Development authorities frequently on a monthly basis so that they can see the progress as well. Continue. You can maybe move ahead. These are some of the glimpses of the dashboard. So in the last 1 year, we have deployed our solution in Maharashtra and Telangana. The count has reached 11,000 today of children's record in 20 plus districts. And our system has identified close to 3,900 children for adoption evaluation. But given the resources, we are working on about 300 plus cases and we're able to get 160 children. The count probably increased in the recent week. Legally free for adoption, that means they are in the national database, and 50 plus children have reached families through our work, facilitation of our work, or have been reserved for inter-country adoption. Their process takes a bit of time, but they have been matched with a family and they're waiting. Right? Yes. And to just give you a brief game, what happens after the child reaches the legal adoption pool, right? So there's a question. So what? The child has reached. Once the child reaches the legal adoption pool, there is a 33,000 parents are waiting. So whoever is first in the queue in that waiting list gets matched to the child based on the preferences they have given. And once the child is matched, the parent has to reserve the child for adoption and then do some paperwork. And within about 30 days, they can bring home the child in what is called a pre-adoption foster care placement. And after that, a few months down the lane, there's an adoption deed and a birth certificate, which is given under the parent's name, and the child becomes theirs, right? Legally theirs. If the child is not matched for the first waiting parent, then the second waiting parent gets a chance, so on and so forth. The child is a special needs child. The child goes into a special needs list, where parents can actually look at the list and reserve a child if they think they can manage the condition of the child. So today, India is home to 1,400 special needs children who are in the legal adoption pool and are waiting for a family as well. We have different categories in the list called immediate placement, 7-day portal, etc., which is for the advantage of the waiting parents, because the wait is so long. Carings, which is or CARA, which is the Central Adoption Resource Authority, is trying to make it easy for parents to reserve and bring home a child. And also, there are so many children waiting, especially in the older children category. So they want to make it easy. So there are different categories, but within 30 days, the parent can bring home a child in any list they choose to once they are referred and matched with a child. So this is the process after the child enters the legal adoption pool. Next, Protima. And you may ask, Protima had talked about the child's journey. What happened to Sakshi? Sakshi was flagged for adoption evaluation by our tech solution when one of our field workers had gone and collected her data and worked through her case on the ground, completed the necessary paperwork and required documentation. And she went into the national database of carings and was declared legally free. And today, Sakshi has been adopted and has reached her forever family. We can only wish Sakshi the very best of her future and the adoptive family to enjoy Sakshi's company. So they reach home. They do go home. Our work primarily we primarily work with children above 6 years old, 6 to 18, which is a very neglected segment of children, because a lot of relevant stakeholders also think these children do not get adopted. But we have seen they do get adopted. In fact, a couple of weeks back, a 16-year-old child got adopted. And that's, immensely, for us, it's a very, very happy moment. And we can just wish the child the best, right? As Protima started, you can go ahead, Protima. We are three of us co-founders, and we started in 2019. We started actually in 2018 with the digital campaign. 2019, we founded Where Are India's Children? And today, we are 25 people. So our strength has grown from strength to strength in terms of the field associates, organizational building, etc. So we continue to do our work. We continue to hope more children will reach families, and we want more Sakshis to reach their forever families. So that's our work. And thanks for attending. If you're interested, should I?
You should, yeah, Meera. I think we can take some time to show the demo.
So let me share a quick demo of our product so that you understand how we use. Protima, visible?
Yes, it's just loading. Yes, I can see it now.
Okay. So as you can see, once we log in, this is all test database because we can't show you the live system because of confidentiality clauses. Our system essentially opens up to a dashboard where we display, and there are filters for state, district, shelter homes, etc. And where we display categories of children in childcare institution, the total number of children in each of them. So you do see that we've actually created 20 categories in our system. They go to a granular level so that a child welfare committee can understand why a child is in the system, right? And today we also have seen that 60% of the children in childcare institutions are actually having families. They are admitted to these CCIs because of educational support, because of poverty, etc. Right? And a lot of them also are not able to raise the child. They're unwilling to raise the child. They're in need of care themselves, the parents or the guardians, criminal background. So varied reasons these children are admitted to this childcare institutions. And we want to show that to the government at a glance, right? Our work primarily is with these three categories of children: abandoned, family not traceable, orphan, no guardians, and surrendered. But we also display this because if there is an orphan child who has an unfit guardian or a child with an unfit parent, if they're not visited by the family for more than a year, then the law also says they should be evaluated for adoption. The process should be done similar to an abandoned child. So we flag even those children who have not been visited by their families for more than a year, right? And the other children who are children with financially distressed or single parents and are visited, unfortunately today policy do not allow us to evaluate them for adoption, but we do want to highlight them for the purpose that these children are still living far away from their families and in institutions. So this is at a glance a dashboard view of the different categories and different states, districts, etc., and the total number of children that are residing in these institutions. As mentioned, we capture the visitation of these children, how long ago these children have been visited by their family, and based on that, our rule engine actually determines whether they should be evaluated for adoption. And these are some of the widgets or information we want the officials to learn about our solution, so that they make an informed decision of whose collar to pull up and which state or which district they should call and say that get your act together and please evaluate these children for adoption. So we have different kinds of information basically, but this is the main widget we work out of, which is children recommended for adoption inquiry. So if you see here, a lot of these the states we have mock data, and when you click on this, it will show you the details of every child, right, who has been recommended. And here, if you look at it, every child, gender, date of birth, age, all the classification, health status, all of this data is given here. And what is the reason for flagging? Why did we flag this child for adoption evaluation is also presented here, so that when we present this data in front of the Child Welfare Committee, at a glance, they can look at it, and if needed, ask the child care institution to bring the child and with the entire file in front of them, right? So I go back to the tab. So this is our main important widget. wherein we can show the number of children recommended for adoption evaluation. And then, as you can see, we are an NGO, so we will not have resources to work on 4,000 children at once. But we work on cases which we have resources for, and that is where we kind of display that here, where a number of children's cases we are working on presently, and what is the status of these children, where are they at, what is pending, etc., is also shown through our work. And the overall status of all of the children, right? So these are the number of children in the system, how many are recommended, how many are in the adoption pool, etc., are displayed at a glance for these. And the length of stay in childcare institution is very important for us, because we have seen children languishing in shelters for 10, 12 years for no fault of theirs, right? Whereas they could have gone into the adoption pool much earlier if somebody had picked up their paperwork and done all the processes required. So this is very important for us to showcase to the government that, look, these are the children who are staying in shelters unnecessarily, and something needs to be done about them. And according to our laws, a child welfare committee is supposed to review a child's case every 6 months. If they don't, then they don't know if a child's status has changed. So we also want to showcase that every child has to be reviewed every few months, so that if there is a change in their guardian status or visitation status, it should be reviewed by the Child Welfare Committee, right? So this is our dashboard. We make continuous improvements to our technology so that we can showcase more and more information, and which is very pertinent to the authorities, so that they can make informed decisions about the children. We have loads of reports for them, so that they get notified early on and continuously about the child's status. And this is how a child's data is entered and displayed. So all the relevant information is displayed here, including, as I mentioned, the Child Welfare Committee orders, they have siblings or not, whether they're in the adoption pool or not, etc. And the most important part of our system is also marking the case history. A detailed case history is, entered, and the guardian visit, guardians are entered. Is there a guardian for this child? Did the guardian call the child or not? Has there been a visit by the guardian? And the documents through which we actually track the movement of the child. So based on the processes, this is all based on the Juvenile Justice Act, which governs the adoption laws today and the adoption regulations. So it is very, very pertinent to that section of the law and the act. We kind of turn on the applicability of a document which needs to be there for the child to enter into the legal adoption pool, and monitor that and track that accordingly in the system. So the movement is tracked continuously. And also the sheltered home, a lot of children actually bounce from one shelter to another. We track that also to determine the length of stay of the child in shelters. And we also, every time a CWC gives an order, that is recorded here for history. So this is our system, and through this, we hope many more children will come into the legal adoption pool, or at least highlighted to the government that these children should be evaluated for adoption. Thank you, Chanakya, for asking this question. You're right, technology can create a digital divide. But the fact is that this is not going to be used by, let's say, we are envisioning this system to be used by the government stakeholders to bring more and more children into the legal adoption pool. We are trying to give visibility to the children living in the CCIs, because today there is no verifiable data of these children. We have said Digital India, we have called out the technology will help in bringing a lot of solutions up front, but we have somewhere left the child protection system behind. And this is an endeavor to ensure that technology aids in the visibility of these children. We are not saying technology will solve the problem completely, because after this, there is a lot of manual work to be done by the district authorities as well. We're just saying it needs to be an enabler, and hopefully that will ensure that there is visibility of the children, and the district and the relevant stakeholders can work on this data. I hope that answers.
I think there are more questions.
What role does pre-adoption
Okay, yeah.
processing play?
What role does pre-adoption processing play in ensuring that our prospective adoptive parents are well prepared for the responsibilities of raising a child? Yes, I think it's a very good question. I think today, with the recent changes in the adoption guidelines, pre-adoption counseling has been made mandatory for parents who are registered to adopt. We have always been big supporter of the entire concept of counseling. I think everybody needs to prepare themselves for the adoption journey really well. And as we started looking at children and as we started looking at the children who were getting identified for adoption evaluation, we did realize that there were a lot of older children who were getting identified by the system and who were being put in front of the CWC and who were also getting declared to be legally free to be adopted. So I think we also realized somewhere that if we want the adoption to be successful, somewhere pre-adoption counseling will make a lot of difference. So even as an organization, we've always been open to people approaching us for counseling, and we've also created a help desk for Telangana government on adoption queries, etc., where parents can get proper counseling, etc. So it is counseling plays a very big role. When we talk about pre-adoption process, honestly, it's a very we have to look at it a little clinically also, because we have to make sure that all the documentation of the child is up to the mark, right? The CWC can ask any question before they take a decision on the child. So they can ask us questions like, has a paper notification gone? Did anybody come back to claim the child? Is there an FIR if the child was found abandoned? Was a social investigation done if the child was surrendered, etc., etc., right? So when we look at pre-adoption processing, we almost look at it mechanically, clinically, to make sure that when you're in front of a child welfare committee, we have all the answers for the child and we have presenting the case really well. But when it comes to counseling, yes, we are all for it as an organization. I think we've always supported the entire concept of counseling. And we're also happy to see that CARA, the central body, has recognized how important counseling is. And they are also, pressing for it across all the specialized adoption agencies. Anything else, Meera, on this?
No, I think just a small point. I think they've actually handheld parents if we came to know that they've been adopted because of through our work, and we have done that. So I think handholding the first few months, actually up to 6 months, is very important. And we do envision that our counseling section of our work or department of our work also will increase as and when we grow.
Yeah. So could you elaborate on the specific ways in which technology is being harnessed to facilitate the adoption process for orphan children in India? What innovative tools or platforms have you implemented to bridge the gap between adoptive families and these children? So Sanjay, thank you for that. I think it's worth noting that there are two distinct parts of the process, right? CARA, under the Women and Child Development Ministry, has created a portal called Carings, where any interested parent can go and register, provide their motivation to adopt, and provide information and basic documents, and register as a prospective adoptive parent. CARA then processes the case, does their due diligence, checks on their capability to raise a child, and then looks at the available children who are there in the legal adoption pool and tries to match the two, using their own backend systems. The problem that they also face is there are the children, because there are very few children to match the 33,000 waiting parents, right? Technology cannot really help unless there are children there for CARA, at least for the caring portal. That's where WAIC comes in. Our work has been to work very closely with the state governments, right now in Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka very soon, and some other states also, hopefully, so that we can help them in identifying children so that they can be continuously added to the adoption database, so that caring CARA can take over and start matching them. Unless children come to the pool, CARA can do very little. The technology that CARA has can do very little. WIC also decided to use technology to identify these children, because it wasn't really possible to have CWC look at 4 lakh children and say who should be adoptable, right? So our solution was to look at all of them digitize them, evaluate them, classify them, complete their cases, and provide a subset that can then be presented. So we also use technology to solve. I hope that's answers your question. So technology has worked in different ways in both the ends. That's what I wanted to highlight. Or specific strategies or practices that individuals can adopt, transition to an adoption mindset. Meera, you want to go for it?
Yes. So, Ritik, thanks for the question. So, all of us, three of us are adopted parents, and we have counseled a lot of parents who wish to adopt, right? For a lot of them, it's just an idea, right? Unless you internalize that adoption is for you. In fact, I think myself counseled so many parents where I have said, please don't adopt, because it is the mindset is so different, right? I'll treat the child like my own, or I'll think that they are my own, are not statements we are looking for. Adoption is a parenting choice, and adoption is just like how you give birth or surrogacy, whatever it could be. Adoption is a parenting choice, and I think there is no one specific strategy, right? It has to come from within. I want to adopt is a statement which has to come from within, and how you hone that. Maybe through counseling sessions, through talking to other parents, prospective parents who are looking to adopt, form a support group, join a forum. I think then you slowly embark on the journey, right? But I think that calling has to come from within, that I want to adopt, and that is it, right? So that would be something which I would recommend. If you want to adopt, it has to come from within, and it is not like your own child, it is your child, right? That's when it kind of sits in, and then you go through the process, the legal adoption process. And also, I think sometimes I do say that if you're willing to wait for a child for 3 years, then you are the right parent to adopt. If you're not, then maybe not, right? Because it is frustrating, but there is a gestation period even for a biological child, right? So we think of it as gestation period, and read up a lot, and just prepare yourself to be a parent. Parenting is hard. It's either bio or through adoption. Parenting is hard. So equip yourself on parenting tools, and hopefully you'll be ready. But no child comes with an instruction manual. Every child is unique. So we just can prepare ourselves to be a parent. That would be the strategy, and hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think only probably thing I can add is, as a society also, I think we need to normalize adoption. It is a parenting choice. It is just another way of creating a family. So for our children, so if so I always say, like, if you can adopt. If you can't adopt for any other reason, you be a cheerleader for somebody who's adopting, right? And make them feel as if it's a joyful occasion when a child comes home. It's an occasion to celebrate. So that's what I think. The minute we start looking at it as an occasion of joy, an occasion of people, souls coming together and making a family, I think that's when we'll be much closer to an adoption mindset. Pragati is asking, how do you ensure that technology does not replace the critical human elements of adoption, such as emotional bonding and a cultural sensitivity? Meera, go for it.
Again, Pragati, I think we are looking at the pre-adoption process. The matching of the child and the counseling, etc., is done by CARA, the Central Adoption Resource Authority. That said, we are actually in the process of working, hopefully it will materialize, working with them to see how we can also bring this piece to it. Emotional bonding and cultural sensitivity is, yes, part of the adoption process, the post-adoption process. That can only come through handholding, through counseling, through various workshops, sensitizing the parents as to what to expect, right? What to expect when the child comes home, how they have to prepare themselves, etc. And we are looking at it, as I said, through WAIC, how to provide these platforms so that parents can be prepared through our work as well. But we are trying our best, and hopefully CARA also will do more. They are trying their best. They're trying to do more. How they can bring these all the in the same platform. It is sometimes difficult, but they are trying their best, because they made counseling mandatory now for parents. before they even do the home study, which is a mandatory part of the process. And so they are trying to encourage, and we also as WIC are looking at counseling, especially because our work entails older children adoption. We are looking at providing those sessions and those workshops through our platform as well. So hopefully, we get more resources and we'll get into that as well.
I think the only thing I can add is, Prati, that technology is an enabler, right? Finally, who's taking decisions about these children is the CWC. Our system can say 3,900 identified. Our system is very aggressive. It'll say, please look at these 4,000 children, but CWC will look at the case and at many times push us back saying, are you sure? Have you looked at all angles? Have you looked at all parts of the case? Have you really understood the child's story? And would that be a problem later, right? And then we have to go back and think that have we done our homework properly? Have we done our due diligence properly? So finally, it is a human process. It is a human process. Technology only helps to say that, oh, you missed out somebody. That should not have been missed. Unless I have technology, as a human being, I might keep missing out. Those children will become invisible to me. Right? But once the technology is highlighted, then it kicks in to say that, oh my God, if there are so many children, what are we doing about it? Let's take some decisions about it.
Okay. I think visibility is the key, right? Unless they're visible, how do you even work with them, right? Today, there are so many children who are not visible. So that's what our endeavor is, a small one, but yeah.
What role does education and awareness play in shaping an adoption mindset, Amazon?
I would like to actually mention my son's contribution to this, right? A lot of people have asked. Our children, I think, including Protima, though they're very young, are our brand ambassadors. And this happened when my son was about probably 9. And he said, he came home one day from school and said, today I told everyone in my class that I was adopted. And I was a little worried. So I said, how come? How did that happen, right? Suddenly out of the blue. So he said the science teacher was teaching about DNA. And one of my friends said, Akash should take, I'm sorry, I said his name. Akash should take the DNA test. And then he said, he got up and said, he's saying that because I was adopted, right? And he said after the class, lot of kids came to him and asked him, what is adoption? Because they thought only pets could be adopted, right? And he gave them some gyan about what is adoption and how he was adopted, etc. And he was barely 9, right? So yes, education and awareness plays a very important role, because if we stick to the tradition of a parent only through birthing, only through maybe kinship care, etc., then yes. But if we can also introduce to children early on that there are different choices of being a parent, right, and make them the brand ambassadors for the future, I think that will be wonderful. That said, I think the fact that about adoption, right, should be introduced early on. It could be when we are teaching them about reproduction through classes, right, 8, 9, 10. Why can't we talk about adoption, right? It should start that early, so that there is a certain mindset, children can go into the adult world that, yes, maybe I will adopt. And today I'm very honored, and I think Protima has mentioned that my daughter wants to adopt. Right. And that can only come through education, awareness, and talking a lot about it. So, yes, it does help a lot. We conduct adoption awareness sessions, and we will continue to do so to corporates. Even corporates don't understand. Even urban population don't understand about adoption. So we will continue to do those awareness sessions, and hopefully, it will become mainstream, hopefully in our lifetime. We are living examples of that, Sumina, but we are a small section. But believe you me, I think the adoption ecosystem has grown. Considering the population of our country, it's still very small, just about 34,000 parents waiting to adopt. But that is, I think, considering what it was a couple of years back when it was 16,000 and now it's doubled. We think it is growing, and there are a lot of parents, there are a lot of forums, there are a lot of parents adopting special needs children. So I think it has grown, and it has been quite successful. But yes, sometimes there are no successes, right? If we go into the mindset with success as the goal, then I think it is not right, right? Are we doing right by the child? I think if we can approach it like that, I'm sure a lot of the adoption journeys will be successful. Yes, there are what are called disruptions, but that are far and few in between, and we can't make them the rule. Those are the exceptions. But yes, we have seen a lot of successes in this journey, in the adoption journeys. We know a lot of parents who have adopted and are very happy. No, the children are happy. The children are growing in an atmosphere and environment they should be. A child's right to family should be looked at, and hopefully it becomes a law and is passed in the constitution sometime in the near future. That's our hope.
That's all we had. No further questions. Yeah, Ashley's asked a question. How has your sister been received by stakeholders and government officials so far? So, Ashley, it did take a little while in the beginning for them to be convinced about it. And I think rightly so, because finally we're talking about children. So, no, but no one should take it lightly. They should give us a difficult time. So, when we started in Maharashtra, which was our first state, we started with a pilot. And when we were able to show certain results of the pilot, that is when we got approvals for the entire Maharashtra state. Very similar in Telangana, started with the pilot, and now we have approvals for the entire state. We're starting Karnataka next month, and they've been extremely receptive of the solution. The center has given us a go ahead in terms of supporting the solution across multiple states, and they're helping us introduce this solution to the other states also. So things are moving now, but initially it was hard. But I think now we are at a stage where we've proved that this works, and then we are now approaching more and more receptive state governments who will take on the solution.
There is one thing that impressed me a lot about the questions, that the questions were put up by a lot of young change makers, the youth. So that was something that that touched me quite a lot, because coming from young generation, like you mentioned about your son, when he was so confidently sharing it with his classmates, this is the kind of transformation, whether or not you are adoptive child or you belong to the family biologically, doesn't matter. The kind of transformation, the kind of understanding these children were able to take from this session, I think the session has been really great, and the questions were excellent. Those helped me also to understand. So I have worked in this space for quite some time. I worked at CCIs for almost 10 years. So understanding deinstitutionalization, foster parenting, adoption was very important. So honestly, because me and my partner have always worked at CCI, so people have always reached out us to understand the guidelines of CARA, because they thought we would know, and we could just share the PDF of CARA guidelines or SARA guidelines to them. So this session, knowing about WAIC and this session, now I know where to direct them. Now I myself know a lot more than what we used to share, other than the PDF. And also, we are running a little short of time, so I think we will have to conclude the session.
Sure.
So I would sincerely like to thank both of you, Meera and Protima. The session was an eye opener to a lot of us, and I'm sure the youth and whosoever has attended, whosoever has heard, they must have got a lot of insight. So thank you so much for the wonderful work that you're doing.